Hey, it's me, Ginger, and I am back with another book review. Today we are going to review Hear the World Entire by Anwen Hayward. The reason I chose this book is quite a convoluted story. In fact, I'm going to make my own video about it. But suffice to say, this is a book that is available on Amazon and other retailers. I bought it on Amazon in the Kindle version. I paid full price, which was $4.99 for it. I read it, I enjoyed it, and these are my thoughts. So, Hear the World Entire is a book that retells the famous story of Medusa and Perseus, and you probably are familiar with Medusa, the character with the snake's hair, who anyone who looked upon her would turn to stone. And Perseus, of course, is the Greek hero who came to defeat her so he could win the heart of Andromeda. We have had many, countless tellings of Medusa and Perseus and all this before in the past. I think there was old Ray Harryhausen. I don't know. Do you remember like Clash of the Titans and stuff like that, where you had all the stop motion animation? That was the one I remember as a kid becoming familiar with what Medusa was, and they had this scene with Perseus with his polished shield, so he could see the reflection of Medusa, and that allowed him to lop her head off. She's always portrayed as, yes, this hag, this monster, this evil creature, and this book tells the story from her perspective, and that's utterly unique. It never had that sort of occurred to me as something that could be done, and it's done really well and in an interesting way. Anwen Hayward gets into the head of Medusa, and just like every bad guy in a Bond movie probably thinks they're the hero, she actually makes the character of Medusa immensely sympathetic. You realise that she is not a monster. She's cursed. As a child, she was given to Athena, and something happened that turned the gods against her, and she underwent this transformation into a monster, and she discovered, like horribly and painfully, that her curse is indiscriminate in who it impacts. And so Medusa, when we first encounter her in this book, has been living away in this cave for centuries, and the people around her, who are all shell-shocked from the war and the activities of the gods and things, worship her and bring her offerings and things like that. Outside her cave are these statues of a number of warriors, except they're not statues. They are men who came to defeat this evil creature, and she instead turned them to stone. And there's one statue of a little girl as well, which goes into in the story. And it's really nice, because Medusa looks at that little statue and then the other ones, and it's like, well, these men, all the warriors around her, would not have been good to her. And because of the things that made Medusa what she is, the book has this sort of this theme of, like, well, not anti-male, but it's like it makes you realise the situation that women were put in by men, and the tragedies that impacted women because of the behaviour of men. But it's all done really well through Medusa's experiences and her thoughts, and the best thing about it is everything that gets there is countered upon by the arrival of this mysterious warrior, who Medusa thinks is going to be like all the other men who have come here to kill her, except it's Perseus, and he isn't. Well, he is, but he ends up instantly proving himself to be different to all the men who have come before. And there's a beautiful line in which she describes how he does that. Here she writes, "I hear a long silver sound, a sword being sheathed." And the fact that Perseus sheathed a sword and then began to engage Medusa in conversation rather than just immediately try and kill her makes up what happens in the story, but it also sets him apart from the men who have come before. And so the fact that there is a really well-written male character in Perseus challenges Medusa's viewpoint and history of everything that had occurred to her. And I think everything that occurred to her challenges all of Perseus's ambitions, being this young warrior out to win the heart of a woman, almost like a prize, rather than actually wanting her as a woman. I don't know, this is all stuff I'm probably reading into it, but that's good. That's the sign of good writing, is when you read a lot of stuff into things. It's a short book. That's why I read it a couple of times, and it ends exactly as the story that we all know ends. I won't tell you how we get there, but it's very, very satisfying. It's not the kind of book that I would necessarily sort of read myself out of pleasure or excitement. I wouldn't necessarily be drawn to it, but I enjoyed it, and I think it is an immensely well-written book. It has a really satisfying story arc to it that concludes, and you're like, okay, that's good. It's almost like a good dinner. You finish it and push your plate away, and you're like, I'm satisfied. So if that's a book that sounds like it appeals to you, if you have any interest in sort of Greek legend or anything like that, it's definitely worth a read. The writing is beautiful, in fact. I had actually kind of come to the product page on Amazon and bought the book with a bit of an agenda, and that I'll get into in my other video. But the writing is really strong. There are some scenes, some words and things that she uses that particularly like. There's one passage which, when I first read it, I was like, oh, this is a bit pretentious, but actually I changed my mind. I imagine that the people trailed up the scree in ceremonial voicelessness, one behind the other. Some would trip on the rubble of the mountain and fall to one knee, bending in accidental genuflection. When I first read that, I was like, oh, genuflection. Couldn't you find a more elegant word than that? And it's like, what is genuflection? Genuflection is when you get down on one knee, when you take a knee, like Colin Kaepernick in all those football games. And I don't think you could use any other word except genuflection in there, so it's quite elegant that way. I always think if you put in a word that is more complex than it needs to be, that is being pretentious. If you use a complex word because it is the perfect word to fit what you're trying to say, that is elegant. There's another line that I really like that sounds like something out of a James Bond book, actually. No one comes here to speak to me, I think. You don't bring a sword to a conversation. I like that. I like that a lot. And one thing I really like at the end, and I don't think you can really give spoilers to this because it's such a well-known story, but Perseus is kind of like this bravado guy who's going to go and slay the Gorgon and go back to Greece and win the heart of Andromeda, and it becomes apparent through his conversation with Medusa that maybe she doesn't want him back, and so Medusa says, before the book reaches its tragic conclusion, promise me that if she does not want you, even after you've saved her, you'll let her go. And that's really sort of the theme of the book and the burden that gets placed on Perseus' shoulder. So Medusa is where she is because of men literally not willing to accept no for an answer, and Medusa gives him the burden of responsibility to change that, at least in his interaction with Andromeda, which is a really satisfying end to the book and has a really strong theme to the book. I don't know, it all comes together really beautifully and elegantly. And it's funny, it's one of those books that I would never have realised even existed if it wasn't for the long convoluted trail that took me there. It's got a ton of really glowing reviews, like really glowing. But apart from that, it seems to be sort of languishing in obscurity a bit. But I'm very pleased that I found it, and I'm very pleased that I read it. And I think it's a terrific book. And if anything I've said about it sparks your interest, go and check it out. Of course, there's a link down below. And good job, Anwen Hayward. I think it's a terrific book. I look forward to reading whatever you do next. And I think one of the things that really comes across in this book is the fact that you really know your source material. You're really passionate about what it is that Medusa represents, and you manage to, I wouldn't say push your agenda, that sounds so negative. You manage to say the important thing that you're trying to say in a way that is congruent with the story and the characters and the experience of that. So it's a really elegantly put together package in terms of the story itself. That's all I have to say. I will be back sometime soon with another book review, I'm sure, and until then, I don't know. Oh, wait, no, I know this. Hit that like button. Yes, don't forget to subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. Honestly, my kids run around saying that all the time, and they're so quick and off the cuff with it, but I'm not. I don't know, do those things if you want to. If not, it's really no skin off my nose, but I enjoy making these videos, and I appreciate everyone who watches them, and I will speak to you again soon. Cheers.